Hello and welcome back to Pete's Behavioral Insights and Theories, aka Pete's Bits. Today we're talking about the Ikea Effect. So Ikea is kind of an interesting store, right? It's the most successful furniture store in the entire world. I'm sure most of you watching this video have been to Ikea at least once in your life before. They have 313 stores across 38 different countries, and yet their entire business model revolves around you, the customer, having to do half the work for them. Now, when it comes to explaining the success of Ikea, traditional explanations might look to the flat packing of the furniture, and how flat packing the furniture saves on transportation costs, and also saves them the cost of assembly of the furniture. And I'm sure those things are actually partially responsible for the success of Ikea. However, there's another aspect of Ikea that creates enormous value for the customer, and this value is created psychologically. And the idea is that labor leads to love. When we put work in to create a product, we actually love the product more. This is how Daniel Moshon, one of the original researchers on the Ikea Effect, describes the phenomenon.
Imagine that you built a table. Maybe it came out a little bit crooked. Probably your wife or your neighbor would see it for what it is, probably a shoddy piece of workmanship. But to you, that table might seem really great, because you're the one who created it. It is the fruit of your labor, and that is really the idea behind the Ikea effect.
Now, this actually relates to an old story about cake mix. When General Mills was releasing their latest Betty Crocker instant cake mix, the sales numbers weren't very good. The cake mix worked in a way that you just had to add powder and water to a tin, mix it together, and then bake it, and voila, you had a delicious cake that came out of the oven. But when the cake mix hit the shelves, the sales numbers were dismal. Now, for a while, General Mills couldn't figure out why the cake mix wasn't selling well. They thought maybe it was the taste or the texture at first, but then they happened upon what they called the egg theory, which was if you removed the egg and the milk from the powder, then now people had to apply a little bit more effort when constructing the cake. They had to add the egg and the milk themselves. And what they realized was that an instant cake mix that was too easy was actually incredibly unsatisfying for people to cook with. A cake mix that was just powder and water couldn't really be claimed as one's own cake. However, when you add a little bit of milk and your own egg, now we can claim that this cake is our own, and we can happily serve it to our guests.
Do you want a fresh egg cake or a cake made with dried eggs? For higher, lighter, tastier cake, why, fresh eggs, of course. But remember, all cake mixes are not alike. Betty Crocker cake mixes are different. They call for your eggs, added by you at home. It's the only national cake mix brand that lets you add the eggs.
So once General Mills removed the egg and the milk from the powder, suddenly Betty Crocker cake mix was selling exceptionally well. So this idea of labor leading to love was first investigated by Michael Norton, Daniel Moshon, and Dan Ariely. And the experiment involved getting people to build origamis. So they had two groups, the builders and the non-builders. The builders were given some origami paper, some instructions, and they were told to make a beautiful crane. Now, these people were amateur origami builders, and the cranes that they made didn't look that great. But nevertheless, when they'd finished their amateur cranes, the researchers asked the participants, how much would you bid to keep your own crane? But there was another group that was also bidding on the cranes, and that was the non-builders, the people who didn't actually build the origamis themselves. And what the results showed was that people who built the origamis were willing to pay a lot more money to keep those origamis than those people who didn't build the origamis at all. And what's even more interesting was that they also asked the non-builders to see how much they'd be willing to pay for expertly created origamis. And what their results showed was that non-builders were willing to pay a lot more for expertly created origamis, even more than what the builders were willing to pay for their own origamis. So what the results of this study suggest is that when we build something, we become really proud of it and a bit emotionally attached to it. We really value what we've created, even if it looks a bit rubbish. However, when outside people come to evaluate what we've built, they're able to value the product far more objectively than we are, and hence would appreciate a higher quality product. Of course, it applies to IKEA furniture, where you have to build some of the furniture yourself, but maybe it can apply to other products that you buy as well. Customized t-shirts or trainers, for example. Not only are you deriving value from being able to create a design that you like, but what the research suggests is that you're actually deriving additional value from the labor that you go through in designing the product. Secondly, another example is that my dad bought this enormous barbecue that I helped him set up in the garden. Now, prior to this week, I knew nothing about barbecuing culture, but it turns out there's an enormous online community for people using this barbecue that my dad bought. Videos using the barbecue have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of views on them. I think part of the reason is that the barbecue is such a pain to set up. It's incredibly heavy, has lots of different components, the instructions are kind of frustrating and hard to use. So when you finally complete the barbecue, sure, the barbecue works great, but I think one of the reasons why the fandom is so strong is probably because people have to invest so much time and effort into setting it up and getting it to work correctly. So the Ikea effect seems to be true for a whole host of different products. Not only exciting products like origamis and Legos, but seems to also be true for very mundane utilitarian products. So in a study that got participants to build IKEA boxes, people who built the boxes were willing to pay 63% more than those people who were simply asked to buy the boxes pre-completed. But the box experiment was actually really interesting because it got taken a step further. In another experiment with IKEA boxes, the builders were split into two groups. One group was asked to build the IKEA boxes completely, but another group was told to only complete half the steps of the box, and then the other half of the steps were completed for them. The results show that those who built the boxes completely on their own were willing to pay far more money than those who only partially completed them. The IKEA effect disappeared. So now we're going to explore the real cause of the IKEA effect. What's really going on here, and why does labor seem to lead to love of a product? But before we do that, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel and you're enjoying this video, please can you subscribe to the channel by hitting that big red subscribe button and by ringing that notification bell. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. So the cause of the IKEA effect. The main explanation for the IKEA effect seems to lie in people's desire to feel competent. One of the ways that we can feel competent is by successfully manipulating our environment, and one of the ways that we can successfully manipulate our environment is by successfully completing self-assembly products. And the research to back this up is that if you make people feel bad about themselves, they're actually more enthusiastic to engage with self-assembly products. Now, I'm not saying that IKEA makes people feel dumb in order to sell more tables, but it certainly seems like people have an innate desire to want to feel competent, and self-assembly products allow us to do that. So what are the implications of the IKEA effect out in the real world? Well, one might be the not invented here syndrome. Here's Daniel Moshone explaining it to you.
If I'm sticking to a project and I have been working on it for, say, a year or two, because of the IKEA effect, I might think that this project really is a good idea. So while someone external might look at my project and say, you know, that's a failed project, I'm not sure you should be spending time on it, because it is the fruit of my own labor, I might think that it's much better than it really is.
And another implication might be people who are trying to sell products that they have built or repaired themselves, for example, their homes. Norton gave this example. If people make improvements to their homes, such as laying a brick walkway by hand, they may see this as an increase in the value for the house far more than the people who are actually buying the house, who only see a shoddily built walkway. So just be wary that the IKEA effect is a thing, and if there's a project that you've been working on for a long time and you've put a lot of effort into it, then you might think that that product is far better than other people viewing it from the outside. I guess that's true for these videos too. Maybe I think these videos are better than they actually are. Well, if you guys like this video as well as I do, then please can you hit that thumbs up down below to show me, and leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the video. Next week we're going to be talking about something called the halo effect, which helps to explain why good looking people do really well in life. So if you're interested to find out about that, please can you subscribe down below. Okay, thank you guys for watching again, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.